For roughly 1,000 years, the Sith adhered and implemented their guiding principle known as the Rule of Two. The Rule of Two was established by Darth Bane roughly a millennium before the Clone War, and ultimately culminated in the successful reemergence of the Sith as rulers of the galaxy, through the actions of Darth Sidious in destroying both the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic. But before there was the Rule of Two, there was the Rule by the Strong, the Sith philosophy that immediately preceded Bane's rule. Created and implemented by Lord Kaan, the Rule by the Strong dominated Sith doctrine for a decade. That is, until Bane rebelled against its tenets and imposed his own guiding philosophy on his new Order of the Sith Lords. In this video expose, I will explain and compare the two dominant Sith philosophies that existed roughly 1,000 years before the Clone War, Lord Kaan's Rule by the Strong and Darth Bane's Rule of Two. In many ways, the Rule by the Strong was a product of its time, wherein the Sith were engaged in a violent struggle against the Jedi and the Republic in the new Sith Wars. Because of this enormous conflict that would decide the fate of the galaxy, many of the highest-ranking Sith believed that they should expand the Order's numbers to directly confront the forces of their enemies. Of course, this would then require a Rule by the Strong, wherein the Order's strongest Sith ruled over all others. Instituted by Lord Kaan, a fallen Jedi who had risen to become a Dark Lord of the Sith, the Rule by the Strong was formulated within an era wherein the Sith Empire had become fractured, and Sith Lords waged an endless campaign against each other for supremacy and the title of Dark Lord, rather than uniting to defeat their common enemies in the Jedi and the Republic. Rule by the Strong was a reaction to the situation, as Kaan looked for a way to prevent the Sith from destroying themselves, and moved to reunite all of the splinter groups of the Sith Empire under a single dominating philosophy. To bring the Sith together, Kaan put in place the idea of cooperation and equality among every Sith Lord, a unique and foreign concept within the history of the Order. Because of the focus on implementing an order defined by cooperation, equality, and large numbers, Kaan underpinned these concepts with an overarching Rule by the Strong. Through the Rule by the Strong, the Sith would have the strength in numbers, with many Sith existing at a single time, but there would also be a leader who was the strongest and most powerful Sith. To help ensure that the strongest Sith emerged and led the weaker Sith, Kaan organized the Sith Council. While the Council ensured that Kaan's adage of all are equal in the Brotherhood of Darkness was followed, and a relative amount of cooperation occurred in regard to the direction of the Sith, the Rule by the Strong was to ensure that the strongest within the Sith Order would see their power rise and expand, while the weakest members had their power decrease. Therefore, Lord Kaan's Rule by the Strong was a theory that would provide the Sith Order with the following. First, the strength in numbers wherein they could immediately confront the forces of the Jedi and the Republic head-on in the new Sith Wars. Second, it fostered a belief of equality and cooperation amongst the Sith to bring an end to the era of infighting and divisiveness, so that the Sith could focus on destroying their common enemies. And third, and most importantly, Rule by the Strong would help to ensure that although there were thousands of Sith within the Order, the strongest would still emerge to lead the Sith, as their power would be fostered and increased. Of course, the Rule by the Strong sounded good in theory, but many Sith came to recognize it as fulfilling the opposite of its stated goals. Chief among the Rule by the Strong's critics was Darth Bane, who came to see Lord Kaan as a fool, and who in many ways created the Rule of Two as a reaction to the flawed nature of Kaan's philosophy. For Bane, the Rule by the Strong could never work in practice. In fact, it hadn't been working for the decade that had been instituted to dominate the Sith. Bane saw that the focus on allowing numerous Sith to join the Order was a barrier to allowing the strongest members to rise to the top. The Sith Council itself was a detriment to the intentions of the Rule by the Strong. This is because the strong would never emerge due to their being defeated by a collective of numerous weaker Sith, who would create a temporary alliance to remove those ahead of them within the Order. Rather than foster an environment that decreased the infighting amongst the Sith, Bane saw the Rule by the Strong as encouraging it, as Sith would always band together to try to secure their place upon the Sith Council and maneuver themselves higher up the chain within the Order. Importantly for Bane, Kaan's whole premise that the Sith should be guided by the principles of cooperation and equality was a lie, as there could never be true equality among Sith Lords. Confident that the rule by the strong was destroying the Sith, Bane set out a new philosophy that can be seen as the mirror opposite of Kaan's philosophy. The rule of two was the rejection of the belief that the Sith could be numerous in number, yet still resist the occurrence of infighting, as well as the premise that the Sith could be governed through the ideals of equality and cooperation. As Bane concluded, the Sith could only truly be ruled by the strong through his rule of two, wherein there were only two Sith at any given time, a master to embody the power of the dark side, and an apprentice to crave it. Because the rule of two dictated that power could only be transferred to the apprentice when they took the life of their master, this ensured that the Sith would grow more powerful as the master-apprentice cycle continued forward. Darth Bane's rule of two was an attempt to reinstitute the true ideals of the dark side and the Sith, wherein the Order was not guided by the Jedi tenet of equality. Although Lord Kaan's rule by the strong had only been practiced for roughly a decade, ending when the Brotherhood of Darkness and the entirety of the Sith Order was eradicated by Bane's deceptions during the 7th Battle of Ruusan, the rule of two was able to operate for over 1,000 years. Over this period, the cycle of master and apprentice continued, albeit with some deviations from the pure form of the Baneite system, ultimately culminating in the Sith destroying the Jedi and the Republic through the actions of Darth Sidious and his apprentice Darth Vader. Therefore, while these two Sith philosophies couldn't be more opposed to each other, Kaan's rule by the strong and Bane's rule of two were two crucial theories that directly confronted each other for dominance over how the Sith Order would be run, with the latter ultimately prevailing and continuing unopposed for a millennium. So there we have it, Darth Bane's rule of two versus Lord Kaan's rule by the strong. We love making these videos, so why not subscribe for more fun Star Wars theories and discussions? Also, if you enjoyed the video, think about giving a like or leaving a comment. If not for me, for deceptions.